Listen, Winota is just far less superior than Feather as a commander. I stand by it.
Yeah, but you've lost to it a ton of times.
And yeah, on that note, welcome back to Hometown Commander. I am your host, Mikey, and with me, as always,
your boy Millzy.
Listen, Winota is just trash.
It's my life. Don't talk about her like that.
Okay. The waifu.
A waifu. No, we're already canceled.
We're already done. Listen,
we're less than a minute in and we're already canceled.
Listen, both are great commanders, and I think both of them have their own strategies that just go far beyond our play group. That they just can't handle it. They can't handle the smoke.
They cannot. Welcome to Head-to-Head episode
Dose
2.
Yes.
Before we tell you who the commander is for today, who doesn't love a shameless plug? Right?
Yeah, shamelessly.
First shameless plug. We have a Discord.
Get there.
And by that I mean the Discord will be there when you hear this episode. So go down to the description below in the show notes. Click that link. Come join our Discord. It is free to any member of our community. No need to pay to be around us and to be involved.
Yes, please come enjoy some conversation. Start some conversation. No fights. I will not allow it.
Aggressively make fun of all my decks because why not?
That is the only thing that we will do. That's all we will do.
Should we make a text chat room just called Make Fun of Millzy's Decks?
It's happening.
Okay.
As we speak.
And our second link to plug this morning, this afternoon, this evening,
whenever you're listening
to this, is for Rogue Energy. Rogue Energy is a powdered energy drink that you put in a shaker cup or in other things in water, shake it up and enjoy it. It has no sugar, all the caffeine of the energy drinks you love, and random vitamins as well. Mikey, are you going to get us that shake today? Oh, Mikey,
and the drink.
What are you drinking down on this episode?
Grape popsicle.
Great popsicle. What a good flavor. So if you go over to Rogue Energy, thinkrogueenergy.com, use code HOMETOWN for 5% off, or there's going to be a link down in the show notes for you to go to their website, buy anything. We get a kickback if you like us enough to buy something. Try it out. My flavor recommendation for this episode is going to be blood orange. It's a really cool flavor. I really enjoy it. Mikey is jamming down to that great popsicle. That is very good as well.
That is Hometown, all caps. That is HOMETOWN for those illiterate people like me who don't know how to spell very well.
It's a good thing that we're doing a podcast.
I don't know how to spell, so this is why I talk. I don't type.
I guess that is fair. Well, Mikey, before we get to our commander this morning, or afternoon or evening, what's been going on in your lifetime this week?
Magic-wise, or just in life in general?
I mean, I feel like we got to have fun either way.
So in life in general, the break is a thing. The winter break is a thing. And like I said in the last episode, I work at an elementary school. So having a break is nice. And it is giving me so much time to work on new decks. Because that's what we love doing around here.
I mean, you could say we do a lot of brewing.
We definitely brew, and we ain't talking tea.
I've got 3 new decks right now that I'm slugging my way through. I had a Aura Black-White Clerics list. I am going to try as Abzan with Nethroy, the beautiful nightmare cat thing from Ikoria.
Yeah.
I am degrading myself and going into the top 10 on EDH Rec, and I'm going to be making a Korvold Jund sacrifice deck. I've tried my hand at Chatterfang and my hand at Prosper, and I think Korvold's going to do everything that I want from both of them. And then in celebration of the new set and my hopes for the new set, I'm going to be bringing Sisay Shrines back. I am so excited. I love that deck. It is a staple of our old play group before all the new guys joined. And my hope is that with Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, we see some new shrines. I have already teched in. I got all the shrines on the way. Let's go.
You already ordered them?
I had the Sanctums from M21. I didn't have the original the Hondens, so I ordered them. I mean, I have most of the lands now and stuff in the staple binder. So, and most, of course, the enchantment support was Sithis. So, I'm excited to make it work. Will it work as well as I want it to? We'll see. But
you never know. Yeah, I got a couple. I'm gonna start hammering down. One of them is a random off the wall on EDH Rec. EDH Rec. He is ranked 317th. which
No, that is under 100 listeners.
Exactly.
That is over 100. It is 317.
yeah, so there is well enough to be in front of him that are probably arguably out in the atmosphere that is Commander whatever community. Better commanders. But Daxus the Returned, he's a black-white enchantment zombie soldier. See, I can't even talk now. Jeez. I am very illiterate.
Oh, so you're copying me with the Enchantress commanders now.
Well, I did like your enchantment deck. Sithis is an annoying little butthole sometimes.
Nymph. She's a nymph.
Anyways.
She is. It's on the card.
This is true, yes. But she is... she's interesting. I like the play style of not just putting a bunch of creatures out, swinging, and then having a good time with that. So I'm trying to do something different. I'm also trying to do something what I always do, which is find commander, and then did you drop your mic again?
Nope, it's just hide. My mic's hiding, guys. Sorry.
So
I apologize if that was awkward for everyone else because it was awkward for us.
Nah, it wasn't awkward for me. I'm here, baby. What's up? So what I always do though when I start brewing is I will literally look at a commander and be like, yes, you have a tribe behind you. I must milk you for tribe. Which I do, and it's so stupid. Like my first deck that we played with was on rogues and everything like that. So now I feel like I can branch away from that and not do that. Even though my next commander I'm literally going to talk about is thank you Kamigawa for giving me this wonderful idea, because I'm super excited for Kamigawa now after seeing like the trailer and just the little bitty tidbit that we got. We can talk about those lands here in just a second, but Yuriko the Tiger's Shadow, she is the ninja. She is the ninja.
Yeah, I think ninjas are a deck that are really cool as a tribe. The more I look at ninjas and the more I look at rogues, I think the more I prefer the ninjas over the rogues as far as an attacking tribal deck. But I think Kamigawa Neon Dynasty will make ninjas better than they are now, and they're a decent deck now. I mean, you have the new Planeswalker. And there, of course, will be more ninja support. There's no way they show us one and don't show us more.
Right, and I like Japanese art style, the Japanese art style, and especially the art style that Kamigawa was giving, the mystical archives from Strixhaven, just the different things that we can throw in this. Because obviously, I'm gonna throw a demonic tutor in here, and am I gonna pay $100 and some odd for it? We're not gonna talk about that.
We're not
gonna talk about that. But it will be in the deck, and there's going to be those beautiful full art lands.
Hey, remember our play group? I sent him the link to these lands, and he responded back with, quote, "Is it okay to be emotionally in love with a Magic card?" And I said, yes it is, because I currently am.
Yes, they look so good. Like, they did such a good job on those. Don't get me wrong, I like the Innistrad full art lands. I get the argument that a lot of people don't like them because they can kind of blend together, and it's like, oh, I have this forest, plays planes on accident. It's like, oops.
Did you see the versions that they're releasing as... I can't remember if they're promos, but they're literally more grayscale than they already were. Like, how? How do you make that land more grayscale than it already is?
Like in the double feature?
I think they're even going to be more grayscale than they were previously.
Oh my gosh.
There's what it is.
Yeah.
I love the new Kamigawa lands.
Yes.
This is in before I spend money to actually upgrade my Zendikar full art lands into Kamigawa lands. A good and a bad. I'm disappointed that they're only available in about a 1 out of 3 pull rate in the draft boosters, and then in every collector's booster. They should be in every draft booster. I think that this is something that we should just be able to get and not be that big of an issue. The good is they're just absolutely gorgeous. Right now, my top 3 full art lands for me personally are the Theros Constellation lands.
Yeah,
I still love just the clean look of them. Number 2 is now the Kamigawa lands, and number 3 will still always be the Zendikar full art lands. I love them. I love Zendikar. It's one of my favorite planes, so it's easy for me to love them. I have way too many of them, but that's not the point.
And he won't share. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I probably would. I love these Kamigawa lands. I plan on moving a couple of my decks to them. Probably not all of them, but some of them. I just think they fit the style so well of some of my decks, and I love the art of these new lands.
If I build Yuriko and actually enjoy playing Yuriko,
You have to put the lands in there.
I will probably put nothing but the Kamigawa lands in this because, holy cow, they are just ridiculously good.
Now, Mikey, you can walk me back if you're not willing to make this as one of our Hometown Commander statements. But Hometown Commander, as a podcast, says that full art lands are better than regular lands. And if you don't agree with that, please come to the Discord and tell me why I'm wrong.
Again, as a person who enjoys a good custom land, and what I mean by that is, as a person who has painted 4 out of the 5 colored lands, because I have yet to paint a plains, because I'm trying my best not to just paint a plains just all white and then just be like, it's my plains.
It would fit, but that's not the point.
But I mean, even when I paint the card or whatever, like, it's the full. I don't stop at the border or anything like that. It's the full thing. Like, yeah, no, full art lands way better every time.
Now, a lot of our listeners out there, or some of them may, and the community really loves the lands that we've seen released in some of the unsets previously, both on the unstable lands and the unhinged lands. I agree. I think they're really pretty lands.
Yeah.
My problem with them are they're too expensive. I don't like basic lands being the reason why we buy a set. And unfortunately, in the past, those unsets, that's the reason people have bought those packs. It's not to play the unset experience. It's to get the full art lands. And so that's the reason why I don't play any of them, is just because I think in some cases they're prohibitively expensive. I know that I'm saying that just after just saying that I love the Kamigawa lands and riding that train. But hey, that's okay. I'm not a perfect player. I have the things that I enjoy. But, Mikey, we're here today to talk about head-to-head episode number 2.
Which is actually another Dimir commander.
Is it?
That's not Yuriko, I know,
Wait,
right?
that's not who I had written down. No, I'm just kidding. Today we are talking about everyone's favorite vampire on Innistrad. Runo Stromkirk. No, I'm just...
oh, yes.
No, I'm not joking about that our episode today is on Runo Stromkirk. I'm joking that I don't think he's everyone's favorite vampire on Innistrad. But...
that could be argued like 4 different ways, I feel like.
I feel like there are probably 4 more popular commanders that I can... Or 4 more popular legendary creatures that are vampires that I can think of off the top of my head.
One of them is not a legendary creature. One of them is a legendary planeswalker.
He probably has had a creature card at some point. If not, he probably will. Or he could have. But he is...
Stalls to look up now?
No, but of course you have Soren, you have Olivia, you have Edgar, Sad Boy Markov himself, and then now we have Audric. Audric is a vampire now, and I will keep my opinion on that at bay. So, Mikey, would you like me to read Runo Stromkirk for the people?
Yes, so we don't get into this vampire argument.
Runo Stromkirk
is
a insert power and toughness here because I don't have it in front of me.
Mikey, it is a 1/4.
It's a 1/4 with flying for 3.
Yes.
Right? For one blue black. It says when Runo Stromkirk enters the battlefield, put up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may reveal that card. If it is a creature with converted mana cost, or as they say now, mana value 6 or greater, transform Runo Stromkirk. Mikey, what does Runo transform into?
A big, giant behemoth of a Kraken horror. Horror, not a whore. Sorry, horror. Kraken horror. He's a 3/5 Kraken horror. His name is Crothus, Lord of the Deep. He is flying. Whenever Crothus, Lord of the Deep, attacks, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of another target attacking creature. If that creature is a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent, create 2 of those tokens instead of just 1. That sounds glorious.
Okay, so a bit of flavor for the listeners out there, because I kind of thought people knew this, but apparently no one caught this if you didn't know the lore. So Runo does not actually physically transform into Crothus. Crothus is the sea god that Runo's brood of vampires kind of praise. It's kind of their god, it's their deity. So Runo does not transform into the Leviathan, he kind of calls it, more or less. So no, Runo's not out here straight up transforming into a sea beast. He just calls him down to do his deity smite on his enemies. Can I just first off say, I love that Runo's blue-black, because every other vampire we see in the game of Magic is either black, black-red, black-white, or Mardu. We very rarely see vampires in blue. And I think that's kind of cool, and I think most of it comes from his love of the sea, right? Is why we get the blue in Runo. But I think it's kind of cool to see a vampire in a color combination that we haven't seen before. Now, if y'all listen to Mark Rosewater's podcast, he has been asked the question why we didn't get a Mardu vampire commander in the set. He gave the answer, I think, Mikey, that you'd expect, which is that they didn't feel like they could beat Edgar Markov. So they decided, instead of putting a 3-color commander in the set, they decided to put another 2-color commander in a color combination that we haven't seen before for vampires, and that's blue-black.
Which I find only slightly disappointing, and the reason why is because in our play group, we look at Edgar as one of those cards of like, he's good. We know he's good, and then we kind of move on from it. I know one of us has a deck built around him, but it's not one of those like, Edgar hits board, I win game, or not even hits board actually. Edgar is there and I win game, but it's still a fun deck.
Don't worry, guys, it's not me, so you don't got to worry about that.
This is true. Yeah, no. Millzy stays away from that, which is hilarious. But I do.
Because I should be the guy to build Edgar Markov, but I want more fun than that.
I am so glad you are not. But I wish they would have I wish they would have made another 3-color vampire commander, Mardu mostly.
Can you imagine a straight Edgar Markov reprint in the set? Can you imagine what it would have done to the market if we got a straight Edgar Markov reprint?
That dude's like, how much? Like
I think it's almost $100.
I'm pretty sure it is $100, and it is just no. Wow, no, that would be no. Why would you say that?
So let's not let our conversation about Runo just end up into what we love and hate about vampires as a tribe. Let's talk about Runo Stromkirk, right? So if you guys haven't heard the first head-to-head episode, the concept of head-to-head is that we're going to take this commander. We both prepared a deck list, which you can find down in our link to Moxfield down in the description. You can see both of our tests. They may have puns as the name. They may be bad, but they're there. And you can see both of our lists. But the goal of this show, of this episode, is for us to talk about how we personally built Runo Stromkirk, and maybe the comparison, similarities, differences thereof.
Oh, there's definitely a lot of differences, and I am super excited to talk about them. The first one that we can probably dive into is your version of the deck is more of a reanimating kind of style, where mine is more of a sort of control style. You want to talk about your love for bringing things back from the dead?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at Runo, and my first thought was Sea Monster Tribal, right? Because who doesn't love sea monsters? There's so many cool ones that have been released. We're looking at creature spells that at minimum cost 6 mana, and if not more than that. Blue-black is not normally a color combination that's well known for churning out mana quickly. So my thought process was, how do I get sea monsters out using blue and black effectively, consistently, to my advantage? Runo, right, wants us to put a creature card hopefully from our graveyard back on top of our library. We don't need to get his trigger. We can use a draw spell to load a creature on top of our deck to get his ability, but we also can put one from the graveyard back on top. So there's 2 ways I'm going about this reanimation strategy. One, I'm playing draw cards that allow us to either load the top of our deck or discard as a part of them. So you have things like Brainstorm that allow us to draw and then put 2 back on top. Well, if we have Runo out on the front side, we can load one of our Leviathans or sea monsters in our hand and then get his ability on our next turn, right? But also, remember when Runo comes in, he puts one from the graveyard back on top. Runo may come into the battlefield more than once in the game, and I want to make sure that I have something for him to put back on top and draw. But also, I want to cheat some of these big guys out for free. When you have 10 or 12 mana Leviathans, I think it's going to be tough in blue-black. So we play stuff like Persist. We play stuff like Reanimate. Those big, by big I don't mean in CMC, you're talking about 2-mana spells. But the things that are going to allow us to get these huge sea monsters back. And then when Crothus attacks, we get to make copies of them. Now, I've tried my best to stay away from legendary sea monsters because we can't copy them, right? Now, we could copy them and still get their ETB effects, but we'll lose them when they get long. So sure, I'm still playing creatures like Gyruda and I think I'm playing Octavia on the list, some fun big creatures. But really what I'm trying to do is copy some of the other ones that just get gross when you have 3 copies of them. Now you're asking yourself, but Millzy, how do we get creatures into our graveyard without putting them down on the battlefield? And to that question, I would say, listener, that's a great question. Other than the draw spells, we're going to play stuff like Unmarked Grave, which just allows us to go put a creature card into our graveyard.
Entomb,
exactly. Go put a creature card into our graveyard. Buried Alive.
Yes.
Lets us put more than one. And my reanimation isn't just with one spell. I have chosen to go the snow route for my lands. So I get to play a card like Blood on the Snow, which is going to wipe the board and bring me a monster back, hopefully. So
you could even change it up, and if you wanted to do a different strategy, you could put Surveil in here.
That's a good idea. I didn't even think of that. I'm also playing Animate Dead as well, the enchantment.
Well, yeah.
But what I'm going to guess is a way that probably maybe a sub-strategy that we both are using is some of our sea monster support. So we have Quest for Ula's Temple, which allows us to, after a certain amount of time, actually be able to cheat those guys into play for really cheap. We're also playing 2 really cool sorceries that are going to give us advantage for playing them. We have Whelming Wave, which just allows us to return all creatures to their owner's hands except our sea monsters. And then we also play Crush of Tentacles, probably. Crush of Tentacles allows us to return all non-land permanents back to their hands, and then potentially put a 8/8 octopus onto the battlefield, which would be another good target for Runo to copy later. So we get some spells that kind of reward us for playing sea monsters. Now, Mikey, the interesting part about your list, which I don't think you would have expected me to do, but I most certainly expected you to do, was to go more of the control route. Tell us how you got there.
So yeah, I looked at what I know about blue, especially blue-black, and I went not very heavy counterspell, but very heavy try to make the board state more in my favor. I love cards like Whelming Wave. I love cards like Aetherize, where I can return all attacking creatures to their owner's hand. If I don't have enough mana to build up my board fast enough, and I feel like I'm getting behind, I feel like a card like Aetherize is something I could easily just play when someone's like, well, I'm sorry to do this to you, Mikey, but you gotta go. And I'm like, well, no. And that's always great. I have Counterspell, Counter Squall, I have Drown in the Lock.
Love Drown in the Lock. Probably one of my single favorite Dimir cards. It has great utility in that it does 2 things. It's a counterspell and it's a removal spell on 1 card for 2 mana. And that is just gross.
Well, you can only choose 1, unfortunately, but you still get the best of both worlds, as they say on the wonderful show Hannah Montana. I also have like Fierce Guardianship, go for the Throat for destroying a creature for something kind of cheap, Murder to destroy target creature.
Can I just say really quickly, my favorite piece of removal that you're playing in your deck is Eye of the Beholder, giving a creature -11/-11 until end of turn.
That was me getting around indestructible creatures, because we talked about this in one of the on our first episode, actually, our intro episode, telling people who we were and how we play. Theros Gods are incredible cards, and when they become creatures, oh boy, get ready for an indestructible. You insert power and toughness here that hurts, and there's not a lot of ways to remove them. So I put in Eyes of the Beholder, one, because look at that art. That is beautiful. Just this beautiful beholder destroying that poor innocent probably not, because he's bugging a Beholder, which are my favorite monsters in D&D. Just destroying that man. And how great is it to know that a Beholder could destroy a god? Isn't that great?
It's pretty great. I'm just thinking in my head, Magic doesn't have a ton of X minus X spells. The one that I can think of at the top of my head that maybe would be my choice to replace it, although you would lose a lot of the mana ability that you get from it, would be like an Erebos' Intervention, or maybe a Toxic Deluge, if you want to go with the big splashy.
I mean, if you're thinking big splashy, why are we not talking about Meat Hook Massacre?
Yeah, my other thought was going the low to the ground route. Like if your play group has a lot of tokens, or people are going really wide, you can play something like Languish, which just gives everything -3 or -4/-4. So there's definitely a lot of options. I love black removal because black has a lot of this -X or minus whatever sub-theme to it, and I don't think a lot of people expect that. So if you're looking to build this deck and you want some fun pieces of removal to kind of surprise your opponents, I think Eye of the Beholder is definitely one of them. It's going to surprise one of your opponents. But maybe a Languish or something like that could be something that would throw your opponents off guard.
Yeah, for sure. Eyes of the Beholder is good for single target remover. Now, granted, it's 6 mana, but I mean, you're gonna be able to remove anything with a -11. Okay, I can't say anything, but most, if not everything, with -11/-11. No, I do agree, though. Languish is a great card. One card I have in my deck, and this is me probably going more of the control style. That's going to be my strategy, my win con, my go-to kind of thing for my deck. And one card that I have that you don't, it kind of surprised me, because we talk about it a lot in our play group, and I think it was probably one of the first cards I added. And now looking at your list, you don't have it, and it really throws me off, and that's Torment of Hellfire. Can you explain why you don't have that card in your deck?
So Torment of Hellfire is one of my favorite black finishers. I think the reason I don't have Torment of Hellfire in this deck is because I don't expect every game to hit the level of mana I need to make Torment of Hellfire work the way I want it to. That's just me being transparent. I tried my best to go for something like, I'm just realizing it's not even in the list, so it'd be something I'd add, something like an Extinction Event or a Cyclonic Rift over Torment of Hellfire. I'm also trying my best to play a little bit more aggressive. My goal in this Runo list is to try to win by combat with Runo's copying. And so a lot of the stuff that I've put in here is just trying to push my advantage that way. I completely agree. I think Torment of Hellfire is a great spell for this deck, for most black decks. I actually can't think of a black deck off the top of my head that I wouldn't put Torment of Hellfire in. It's a good point. I probably didn't think of it off the top of my head when I was making this list. To give you guys the behind the veil of this is not a deck that I have built.
Right.
The first episode, which you haven't heard it out, I'd recommend you go check out our first head-to-head episode of Tovolar. That's a deck that I had built. Whereas this is just something that I built, goldfished a bunch of times through the different websites you can goldfish decks, and said, hey, yeah, this kind of runs the way I want it to.
And this is a deck that both you and I don't really play. This is a play style that both of us don't play very often. I mean, granted, yes, the strategy for you, it seems, is to put creatures down, win by combat, and that's, even last week we talked about that with Tovolar. Like that's your strategy. That was your strategy to win the game.
And for the listener, it won't always be my strategy.
No.
I don't. I hope that in the future that we build decks where I don't go combat as the way to win. Just for me, as my point, kind of with sea monsters, I prefer more of the Simic route of sea monsters, where we're going into huge mana and we're kind of gaming the sea monster system that way. So for me, Runo was a little tough to build because it's not what I'm used to. I don't know about you, Mikey, but that's kind of what I got into. Now, this is a beautiful commander because this fits up your alley a lot more than it does mine. So this is fun to see because you're putting me slightly out of my element, and we're playing a little bit into yours. Whereas last week we're playing a lot more into my element than
that's for sure.
Yours.
What's funny is I don't have a blue-black commander yet. I talked about the top of the show that I'm going to try to build Yoriko, which is hilarious because the way I'm going to build it is more get creatures in there. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm probably going to go more of this route as well, of wanting to control the state of the board into my favor more, and to do another thing that I'm trying to do with my Runo deck here is draw cards. Drawing cards in a card game is good.
Most of the time,
Is good. I mean,
No, it's always
you play things like your Heuristic Study, and you play Opt. You play. I know I have another one in here. You have Frantic Search, which are all great. But I believe if I continue to look, yes. So I have value off of just drawing cards itself. One of my favorite Krakens, I think, is Nadir Kraken.
Yeah.
For 1 colorless, 2 blue. It's a 2/3. Whenever you draw a card, you may pay 1 colorless mana. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on Nadir and create a 1/1 blue tentacle creature token. So now
that can get out of hand.
So now, if I have Nadir out and Heuristic Study, hello value. Thank you so much for the +1/+1 counter for the extra blocker that is a 1/1 blue tentacle creature, and thank you for the card for playing that spell because Heuristic Study is gross, and we all love it or I hate it. Or love and hate it. But I like Nadir Kraken. It's an early game kind of sea monster I can get out. I can even put it into my graveyard, or get it from my graveyard after maybe swinging with it a couple times, transform Runo over, and then get 2 Nadir Krakens with Crothus, and just have all of the blue value you can get out of blue value.
Exactly. I think the one kind of subset strategy I'm intrigued you don't have in your deck that I do is blue's ability to copy creatures.
Yeah.
I immediately looked at cards like Spark Double and Sakashima 1,000 Faces and Rite of Replication, and I said, man, I'm already trying to copy these creatures anyway. Spark Doubling down for another Runo is great. Sakashimaing down for another Runo would be great. Even not that, to copy any of these other Krakens or Leviathans is just huge.
Oh yeah.
I was kind of intrigued. I know why. You're putting more of your eggs in the removal and counterplay basket, which is great. It's actively definitely one way you can take this deck. But that was kind of the second sub theme I put in my deck was, man, if we can Rite of Replicate a card like Slyn Voda, or a card like Serpent of Yawning Depths, giving ourselves another thing that gives us advantage, man, it's just gonna push the game forward in our favor. Now, the only thing that gives me slight reservation in this deck is the lack of a good trample enabler. Don't really have one. So I think we have to rely on cards like Serpent of Yawning Depths that don't allow our opponents to block us to really push our advantage through.
I agree. I think we're blue really, and the combination of blue-black is hilarious in this sense. Like, you look at like a rogues deck or something like that, there's a lot of unblockable creatures in those kind of things. I think blue really strives with flying enablers or anything like that, and I think that's where they can really get their push. What I think can be an interesting strategy, and I think this is where I kind of was going with the deck, really, was I'm going to be on the defensive side. Not on the back foot, but looking more to defend with huge creatures rather than to swing. Because if I can remove that one big creature with something like Eyes of the Beholder or any of the removal pieces, and then now I get a chance to hit somebody with my 8/8, 5/5, 6/6, so on and so on, then I feel like I'm in a pretty good situation. And I think that's where a lot of people can go with blue and black is, hey, maybe I don't look like I'm going to hit you very hard because I don't have the trample, I don't have the haste or anything like that, but what I do have is still huge creatures that people are going to get nervous about.
I think one of the bonuses with that in blue is, remember, blue has a affinity to tap things down, creatures down, right? I think one of the Leviathans, or that's a it's a Kraken. It's an all-star in this deck for that reason, is Spawning Kraken.
Yes.
It allows you to attack with your other sea monsters and then get a free, what is it, 8/8?
9/9!
To block with, provided flying isn't a thing.
Yes.
So there's definitely a lot of counterplay that will allow you for that. Now the one other little sub-theme that I kind of picked out, because we can't always cheat these guys in for free, and we can't always rely on getting 10 mana. So I paired cards like Kefnet's Monument, which is an artifact that all your blue creature spells cost 1 less to cast, which not only helps us with our commander, but helps us with every single sea monster in our deck is blue.
Yes.
And then the other card that I kind of had sitting on the back burner to try to use in a deck for a long time, and I'm glad that I get the privilege to use it in this deck, is an enchantment called Heartless Summoning. It is 1 and a black for an enchantment. It says creature spells you cast 2 less to cast. But the downside is creatures you control get -1/-1. Mikey, I don't think we have to worry about that -1/-1, considering all of our sea monsters have at minimum 6 power.
I was about to say, let me just read off these first 3: a 6/6, a 9/9, a 6/8, a 6/5.
So that 1/1's not as bad
So-
as we think it is. But man, so costing at minimum 2 less makes a lot of our creatures a lot better. And remember, that helps us with our commander too. When Runo starts going back to the command zone once or twice and starts becoming 7 or 9 mana to cast, that's really good. And I think it really can help us claw back from the mess that we're getting in.
I think one thing that's interesting with this commander is we are using more of Runo's color combination to our strategy rather than him himself. Now, his backside for the creatures that we have, of course, that is what we want. We want to get as many copies of these sea monsters as we possibly can. But that front side, I personally don't see things from my deck that just immediately scream, yes, I will change him to his, backside immediately. I'm more worried about getting something advantageous out of it rather than immediately going for Crothis. And I feel like you have an awesome way to do that. We talked about your reanimating to move him over to Crothis. We talked about how we can add Serval into there, and I wish there were more ways to change him over to his backside that we talked about last week with Tovalar. He's a werewolf. He has the Nightbound Daybound. I kind of honestly wish Runo also had Nightbound Daybound.
Yeah, it would be a ton of fun. I think this is where my main reservation with Runo comes in, and that's that Runo, like a lot of commanders, has one play line that makes him work swimmingly, right? We want to get that big monster on top and then use it to flip him and then hopefully push our advantage. I'm playing a card in this deck that I honestly never thought I would play, just because it's not a good card, Mikey, but because I just refuse to spend the money on one card that is only playable in certain decks.
You mean
That's
it's not
top.
Demonic Tutor?
And that's top. Sensei's Divining Top. I feel like it does everything Runo wants it to do. It would be the card I would advise you take out first, because I think once Runo flips, we could care less about Sensei's Defining Top. So in my advice, I would pull this out for probably another removal spell or another draw spell. But I put it in there because A, budget's not a concern of ours in this series. And B, because I think most players who play Control are going to look at Sensei's Divining Top immediately for this deck. So I think that's going to be kind of my left field card that you wouldn't expect from me personally. The other one is that, like I said, I mentioned before, I went the snow route. Now I only used one snow spell, and that's Blood on the Snow, and I also used Icebreaker Kraken, of course, whose cost is reduced for each snow permanent you control, snowland you control. But there's other snow options we can use here. You have something like Gravenlore, which allows you to scry and then draw when you use snow. We do have, I'm playing Replicating Ring in the artifact slot to give me another snow permanent and then hopefully get the copies of it to bonus our mana. So snow is not really necessarily integral to this deck. but I think it's a fun little thing to kind of play around with. Now, for anyone asks, no, I'm not playing Dark Depths. No, I'm not playing Merit Lodge. And the reason is because I just don't think it works with what I'm trying to do. My fun tech that I'm excited about in this deck, because you don't have one in your deck, and honestly, I don't think most people are going to think Planeswalkers when you think Runo. I'm playing one Planeswalker.
You are.
And that is Ashiok Dreamrender. I would almost put both Ashioks into this deck. And by both Ashioks, I mean Ashiok Dreamrender and then the main Ashiok from Theros Beyond Death. I know there's another one in the precon, but it's not really what I'm looking for. But Dreamrender says, spells and abilities your opponents control can't cause their controller to search their library. That's a huge control effect for a lot of decks. And her -1 says, target player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard, then exile each opponent's graveyard. So there's 2 huge things there. 1, they mill the top 4. 2, they're exiling their entire graveyard. And 3, we don't have to exile our graveyard.
Exactly.
Isn't that great?
So yeah, go for it. No.
So my hope here is, do I expect to see Ashiok every game? No. She is a tutor target if we really feel like we need it. If we feel like we're against another graveyard deck and we really need it. She is my answer to graveyard decks.
I was about to say, if we're playing...
But she's also my answer to ramp.
Yeah, because searching the library... Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. I was thinking about just, like, creature tutors. I wasn't thinking about ramp tutors. Holy crap.
So if I have a landfall deck, I'm playing against a landfall deck, I think this is a good tech into a landfall deck to try to stop them from searching their library. Now, listener, this is 1 card in a 99 card deck. Am I saying that this is your answer to always have a response? No, of course not.
Am I adding it to my Yuriko deck as we speak? I am.
I hope that someday, whether in this series or in the future, we build an Umbrus list so that I can put all of the Ashioks in it and play the exile everyone's thing route. Listener, I hope that at some point I get to. That is maybe the style of blue-black that I will get to enjoy. But that's not why we're here today, Mikey. We're here to talk about Runo Stromkirk, and I think this is just a fun little tech in one spot of this deck.
I like it a lot. If you're playing, like I was about to say, if you're playing up against another Runo deck, like if we put these together, put these up against each other, Ashiok's gonna beat mine, like, a lot. Like, I'm not gonna be able to, you know, get Runo to transform like at all now, which is going to be hilarious. I think Ashiok's just hilarious and just a lot of fun to put into something like this. One of my fun little things that I put into my deck that you did it, and I again am just a little surprised. And that is the one, the only Psych Rift.
It's in there.
Oh, it is. I was looking at instances on mine, and I was looking at sorceries on yours. That makes more sense.
No, believe me, Cyclonic Rift is in this deck. If there's any blue deck that you need Cyclonic Rift in, it's this deck.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, Mikey, I don't know about you. I hate to cut you off. I don't know about you. But when it comes to a blue staple package that's in most blue decks that I run, it's Cyclonic Rift, Fierce Guardianship, and Rhystic Study if we can.
Yeah.
Those are like the 3 big blue staples in my opinion, and all 3 of them are in this deck because they all help us so much.
And all 3 of those cards have a bit of a hefty price on them. Could you like say anything at all that maybe? I mean, I know Cyclonic Rift is just ridiculous, but I mean, like, I gave an example earlier of Aetherize. That is a lot cheaper option for even cheaper mana. Granted, it's only attacking creatures. It's not everybody's opponents. I mean, there's even like Rhystic Study. I know there are like 4 other things you could run.
I mean, Rhystic Study just helps us, right? Yeah. I think in that slot, I would probably play another removal spell probably instead of Rhystic Study, or another bounce spell. So like, I think the bounce spells that come off the top of my head would be something like Into the Royal, which would hit any permanent and not just creatures. But you could also run Unsummon, which would just hit creatures. Fierce Guardianship is kind of the obligatory expensive card because it's the best at what it does. I notice you're playing a lot more counterspells, so if Fierce Guardianship's the issue, I might play a Arcane Denial, or I don't know, maybe even if you feel a little frisky, a divide by 0, try something a little different that does that.
Well, my problem with Fierce Guardianship, and I of course have it because it's good. My problem though is I get it. It's 3 mana if you don't control your commander, which why would you play it if if you don't? It's counter target non-creature spell though, and instead of something like the only counter spell, which is just counter target spell.
Yeah.
Which I get it. You can't really try to beat counter target spell. I understand that, but I don't know. I guess a free counter target non-creature spell is still good. I'm over here arguing the price in my head is the only thing.
Let's look at Fierce Guardianship not in a control deck, where you have better counter options that you would actually play for free in the same list that are better. Let's look at my Omnath Locust of the Royal list.
A teamer deck. Yeah.
Teamer deck. Okay, you're not playing a ton of counter spells because it's not your thing. But Fierce Guardianship's a free card in that deck.
Yeah.
That is always going to be free in your hand because most of the time you care about your commander. I agree. Fierce Guardianship is only good in a deck where you're not trying to play other counter spells. My problem with Fierce Guardianship, though, is it's too good not to run. Because in the scenarios where you have your commander, it is better than any other counterspell within reason. I mean, counterspell is still better because it hits any spell. This only hits non-creatures. But in my experience in Commander, Fierce Guardianship is going to either stop a huge spell, it's going to stop a Psych Rift, or something like that, or it's going to stop someone from getting rid of your commander or something on your board.
Yeah, now that I think about it, I mean, we just talked about like Psych Rift, we talked about Torment of Hellfire, those big, like you just said, big spells that are just going to change the game, either to end it or to just put somebody at a very, very higher level than the rest of the table. And I get it, yeah. Fierce Guardianship is definitely going to be one that needs to be.
If you want a low to the ground counterspell that's going to win you better in more situations, counterspell, mana drain, they're all going to do it better than Fierce Guardianship. But to me, Fierce Guardianship is the free include because most of the time it's good, and some of the time you got to pay 3 mana for it. So I think it has its ups and its downs. Now, if you're the listener at home who's just starting your Magic the Gathering journey and you don't have Fierce Guardianship, or you don't have the, what is it, $50 Fierce Guardianship's probably at these days. It's probably less than that. But
it's 44 by what I'm reading right now. So yeah, that's a lot.
go run an Arcane Denial or something like that. Or heck, even a Syncopate or a fun
you can get a counter spell for like $1.50.
All of those are going to do what this deck wants you to do a little bit better. I just think that Fierce Guardianship is too good at what it does to not play.
Now, we riffed on this card in our intro episode. It is the only Demonic Tutor. Do we need it in this deck?
Demonic Tutor, the card, no. Tutors, yes. I think we really need a tutor in this deck. Now, I'm playing 2. I'm playing Vampiric Tutor and Demonic Tutor.
I'm playing 2.
Because I have both of them.
Oh, wait, I'm playing 3. I'm also playing Mystical Tutor.
I'm not, just because I'm not playing as many. I should, though. Honestly, it should be in here, because it's a very good card for 1 mana.
Well, I plan on, the combo of Mystical Tutoring for Demonic Tutor, and then I'll go get my Vampiric.
Or Mystic Tutoring for Fierce Guardianship, or
the actual thing that I need. Yes, no, for sure. I don't actually play it on.
I agree. Mystical Tutor should be in my list, and it's not. But the thing with the tutors here is the tutors are going to get us enchantment, artifacts, creatures, or spells. They're going to get us anything. And that is huge when we're trying to play on the back foot. We're not always playing on the back foot, but when we are, we need some of those things, and tutors are great for that. I'm not playing any spells to recur spells from your graveyard. But let's say you were playing a spell that lets you cast cards from your graveyard somehow. I know that that's not as big in blue as it is in red, but there are still some options. Man, flashing back, one of those tutors would be great.
Oh, I agree.
But the tutors are there mainly. My opinion of tutors, and this may get me a little jazz in the comment section or on the Discord. Tutors I look at as second copies of cards in my deck because it lets me go get them. Demonic Tutor is a second copy of every card in your deck because you can kind of go get them with it. Now that's yes and no, right? Because once I've already seen it, I can't go tutor for it, and you're completely correct. But tutors come down to how well you use them.
Yes.
If you use them properly, tutors can be the strongest cards in the game.
Yeah.
But if you don't use them well, they're really just dead, to be honest.
We've seen plenty of games, because you're the one who has used more tutors in our play group than I think anybody else has. I'm starting to get the hang of them and starting to add them more and more into my deck. They're good. I agree after debating with you and with my own internal thoughts and feelings. You should add the tutors to your deck. If you can add all of the colors that you need, like I have both the blue and the black tutors that are prominent and they're good, because they're going to help my deck. They're going to definitely push me into a more advantageous game, and actually just make me have more fun, because there is nothing like, demonic tutoring for a Torment of Hellfire. And then, like, with demonic tutor, you don't have to reveal it, so no one will know that. Even if I vampiric tutor, and no one will have to know that one either. The same with, I believe, mystical tutor. You have to reveal that one.
You have to reveal that it's instant or sorcery with mystical.
Well, that's when it gets a little fun.
I think there's so much room for you to take this deck how you want to take it, and that's what I like about this one, maybe a little more than Tovolar that we did before, is because you look at our lists, we both got to take a different route to Runo's endgame while making it feel like our own decks. So, Mikey, I think the next question that we want to talk about here, because I think it's even more important in this deck than it was with Tovolar, our previous episode. Man, what are we looking for in an opening hand in this deck? Now, I know that our opening hands would look a teeny different because our strategies are different. But for me, we need to play Runo. And for me, I need to play Runo turn 3 or turn 4. We really need to get him out and get the strategy going, because otherwise there are so many decks out there that are going to do it faster than we can. So for me, I'm looking for 2 to 3 lands. I'm looking for at least 1 mana rock. I play enough of them, but I should see them fairly often in an opening hand. A graveyard loader or a draw spell to me is probably a must, if not very good, in that opening hand. And then, man, it would be great if we had a Leviathan sitting in or something like that in our hand to start. But you can't always get that. I would say another all-star from my list is a card like Search for Azcanta. Lets us see the top card of our deck every turn. You can put that trigger on the stack before Runo. So if it is a Leviathan, you can keep it there and then get the free transform off of Runo. It allows you to start putting those into your graveyard for my deck when you're playing that reanimate strategy. As well as once Runo flips, once Search for Azcanta flips, it becomes even better for us. Allows us to search for instants and sorceries off the top, and allows us to get another land source. So it's an all-star in the deck, same as any tutor. Any tutor in our opening hand is probably just good because it allows us to go find that piece we need that we don't have.
One thing I just thought of for me with my opening hand, I would definitely want the 3 to 4 lands because we're playing blue-black. There's not much ramp. I would love to have at least 1 or 2 pieces of removal or of a counter spell of any kind, some kind of control-y spell, because that's where I'm going with this. I also would love to have any draw spell. Of course, Rhystic Study would be the best thing to get, but even if I just get something simple like an Opt or anything like that, and the reason why I say that is if I can play little to no spells, draw enough to have to discard, I'm okay with discarding one of my sea monsters into the graveyard.
For Runo's ability when he comes in.
For Runo's ability for when he comes in, exactly.
Not only that, but Opt, if you played at the right time, could help Runo.
Yes.
Transform him if that's what you want to do. Yep. So, a lot of really great options there. I think the other big thing when it comes to the opening hand here is remembering that how your playgroup or shop handles mulliganing, this is the deck that cares about it a little more than others. I think some decks will have hands that aren't the best, but they're serviceable, and you're going to be able to work them into a win probably any time. I think this is one of those decks that is just so hand dependent.
Yes.
Your opening hand is going to get you a lot of good or a lot of bad.
Yeah.
So I think this is one of those decks where you're going to have to get good at knowing what is okay in your opening hand and what isn't. This episode is not going to be able to teach you that. This is where one of our hopes with the head-to-head series is that you take our list and you go try it and you get good with it and make it your own. This is where the opening hand thing is going to become even more important. I don't think even right now, with just building the list, never piloting it, I may not know what's perfect in my opening hand and not. I think I would still need a few games to really learn what's good and what's bad. So I think that unlike our last episode, where I think I could probably pick a pretty good opening hand just by looking at it, because I'm used to playing that style of deck, Blue-Black definitely has its own constraints where you need more artifact ramp, you need more draw spells, you need more support that you don't need maybe in other colors. So I think the opening hand becomes even more crucial than maybe some other styles of decks.
Would you play, you just said artifacts would probably be more prevalent here for mana. Would you play something like a Commander Sphere in this?
I would. I don't, just because I think there are better mana rocks for 3.
Yeah.
In this case, I like Replicating Ring instead of Commander Sphere because it potentially, if the game goes long enough, I get 8 of them, and that's just like killer.
Yeah.
It's tough to play Commander Sphere when you have the Talismans, which are just strictly better for 2-color decks.
Yeah.
I think 3 mana rocks are better for 3 and 4-color decks when you need more of the... I mean, I have Arcane Signet, I have the Dimir Signet. You have... my choice over Commander Sphere really in this deck was Moonsilver Key. I know it's a newer card and a lot of people don't play it, but I'll read Moonsilver Key for you guys. Moonsilver Key is a 2-mana artifact. It has only one ability. It says 1 and tap it, sack it. Search your library for an artifact card with a mana ability or a basic land. Reveal it, put it into your hand. Moonsilver Key here for me is really either a search for a mana rock or a search for a basic land, depending on which we need.
Both are good.
Which I think both are good. The only card I realized that probably wouldn't be bad in this deck would be like a Fabricate or like a Whir of Invention, something to go get a Soul Ring if you needed it, or to go get an Arcane Signet if you needed it. My suggestion on that, listener, would be if you test this deck out and you find you're not getting mana efficiently enough, maybe that's something you consider. But again, I think a lot of that comes down to me not piloting this deck. I don't know. I'm going kind of off paper and not off.
We're definitely shooting from the
experience.
hip on this one. We're giving our first impression of what a Runo Blue-Black style deck would look like, or how both of us would play it, how both of us would build it, most importantly. And I think that's fine. I think that's what we are, to kind of go deep for a second. I think that's kind of what we're trying to do with the whole head-to-head series. We want to give you options as the listener, but we also want to let you know, like, hey, there are people thinking about someone like Runo Stromkirk. There's obviously people thinking about Tovlar, but there's going to be commanders in the future where, we'll sit there, we will build them out, think about it, put together a strategy. Again, more likely shooting from the hip and having an idea that just kind of pops into our head a week or 2 weeks in advance of us recording, and we'll just go, oh yeah, definitely going to put that in there, definitely going to put that in there, and definitely going to not put that in there, and give you guys options and just different ways to look at a lot of different commanders. And I love that idea that I can listen to somebody who is going to give me maybe an idea for one card out of my 99. And that would help. It really will, because we talked about this earlier. I'm struggling with like putting together my humans deck, and I like humans as a tribe, and I'm going more of the Absent route, and I'm having problems with it. I would love to kind of hear somebody's take on, I put this in there, and I'm like, cool, I will add the first and second card that you say. The other 3, I'm like, I don't really care about. And I think this is really good for a listener to kind of hear is Runo Stromkirk, good card, right? We could say it's a good card.
It's a very good card. Very good commander, and it's rightly so in the top 5 for the set it came out in, and it will probably, over time, sit, I would say, in the top 100 of EDH Rec if it's not already.
And with it being a good card, we want to just give you a bunch of different ideas to put this beautiful mash of peanut butter and jelly Runo Stromkirk together. The peanut butter being Runo and the jelly being Crothis, because you can't have...
Toasty. Anyway.
Toasty.
And I think the other thing, listener, is not every deck and commander we put together is going to be a home run. Not every deck is going to be something we love. It's going to be right in our style. It's going to be something that we wake up singing to the birds every morning because we have the privilege of playing this deck.
I'm imagining like Runo as Snow White now, like opening up his window and just singing
to Crothis out into the sea.
Crothis out into the sea, yeah.
I mean, in full transparency, this isn't a deck I would build. As much as I like this style, I have a deck in my test bench that's Simic, blue-green, playing sea monsters, and I love the style a lot more. But that's okay, that's who I am as a player. My hope for this series, in agreement with everything Mikey has said, is that you look at this deck, it's something you want to play, and that you make it your own. You take it, you run it, you test it, and you make it a deck that you want to play. But for me, unfortunately, it's just not a deck that I would put together.
Yeah, I agree. I love blue-black as a combination. I like to toy around with it, and I love how much control I can try to put into it. At the end of the day, a counterspell is only countering one thing, unfortunately. Now, if I look at me being like a red player, I love doing damage to somebody, but I know I can rattle off like Lightning Strike and Lightning Bolt, and they're going to do 3 damage to one target. It's that give and take of like, am I okay with paying the mana to only hurt one person? Same with the counterspell. Am I okay with paying the mana to only hurt one thing? And my answer is yeah. I am definitely okay with that. But something like this deck really makes me just go, okay, I have now more ideas for my blue-black decks that I will build in the future. Or my blue-black-green, my blue-black-red, whatever. And I've enjoyed looking at what I can do with Dimir as a color combination. I'm excited to build out another Dimir commander now, because this will be my second one. Millzy rolls his eyes because he does not play blue-black.
Well, I do now. I play Sultai, but...
that is not... Come on.
It's not true blue-black.
Exactly. That's green. You green scrubby bubble.
When Mikey and I talked about this idea, when we sat down, and really this is the cornerstone of what we hope people like about our podcast, I said, I want to get challenged in building decks I will never play.
Yeah.
I want to have to defend a list I will never play and be confident in what I chose to build. Because it's really easy to just build a deck on Moxfield and then delete it because you're like, man, this is trash. I would never build this. But in this case, I have to put a list that I'm willing to put my name on and that I would be willing to play or I would be willing to try. And I think I've done that in this case. I built a Runo list that I would at minimum be willing to try. I don't think I would build it. I don't think it would sit in my main deck box. But I would build it. I would try it. And I don't want this ever to become a series where I'm just like, let's throw this garbage out there because I don't want to build this. I want every list that you see from me in this series to be something I would actually consider playing and that I would want someone to play and not just, well, we're getting the clout, boys. We're going for this commander. I don't want that to be the case. And I hope it never does. So I hope that when you take a look at these Runo lists, you see the love that we put into them.
Yeah. And
that you, as you compare this deck to the decks that you're going to see in the episodes around this, that you see the same level of commitment, excitement, and really truly love of brewing that's going to come out from these commanders. And you know what? There's going to be commanders in the future that I may not like, that Mikey may not like, and we're going to have to push ourselves to do it. But that's what I think excites us, is that we have to push ourselves to do it. We have to be someone who thinks about new things instead of just always going back to the same card.
And this is why we brew. This is why we brew constantly. We're pushing ourselves to become better Magic players. And I think this is where something like putting together a deck like Runo, where we know we're not going to probably build it, but it pushes our brain to go, okay, I didn't think about doing this in blue, but now I'm going to probably look more towards this when I put blue into another deck. Or I didn't think about doing this with black, but now I'm going to look at this when I put black into a deck. And I think it's been a lot of fun to build out Runo, for sure. I love now that I'm looking back at this and going, you're going in this, you're going there, you're going to do this, I'm going to put this in that.
And my other thing with Dimir is you have 3 color decks that Dimir is a part of, right?
Yeah.
So now we can take a commander or cards like this and see, hey, what could these cards go in an Esper deck? Could these cards go in Grixis? Could these cards go in Sultai? How would they change? How would my strategy with this change if I went into one of those other 3 colors? Now, of course, we can't always keep the same commander, right? But sometimes strategies transcend commanders, right? So how could building this Dimir deck teach me how to build a Esper or a Grixis or a Sultai deck differently now that I've built just those 2? I think that's huge for me. I've definitely pushed myself as of late to build Sultai. It's such an interesting color combination for me because it has the color I love and the 2 colors that I like the least. And so it's pushed me to change the way that I look at cards. And I have enjoyed this experience because it's definitely taught me to, maybe the next time I take a stab at a Dimir commander to test, I might have some better thoughts as far as where to be.
And I think you said it best, different colors put commanders in different strategies. We're going to see that next week.
Oh, are we going to see that next week?
We will, actually. I believe we will, because, okay, kind of, because I'm
just being funny to the listener. I know who's next week. I just like pulling Mikey's leg on it.
I like to past tense one commander who is in the deck that I am putting together, and I have completely swapped over to somebody else.
Isn't that funny? And
it's great.
Before we continue to tease that, and I think there's a really important point I want to make about episode 3 that's going to be a little bit different than these last 2.
Yeah.
First off, as I said at the beginning of this episode, each of our deck lists is going to be linked down below, Moxfield, on our hometown commander Moxfield page. You'll be able to see all the decks we've done previously in the head-to-head series, as well as these 2. And as soon as every new head-to-head episode comes out on Saturday, those new deck lists are going to be up on Moxfield. You'll be able to see them, and you'll be able to enjoy them. Now, episode 3 of head-to-head is going to be a little bit different. Actually, 3 and 4 are going to be a little bit different because instead of choosing the same commander, we're going to choose the same strategy and or tribe. Now, still Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow commanders, but maybe instead of choosing the same commander, we're going to be playing around with different commanders. And in the case of episode 3, the same tribe, but maybe slightly different strategies. We're excited to see if we can present this in a logical way that you guys will enjoy. It's definitely, we've had a ton of fun with it. I hope you have as well. And even with episode 4, it's going to be an interesting deck, another one that is not the style that I normally like to play, and I hope that maybe provides you guys with some hints as far as what they could be. But I think the next episode, episode 3, could be the first episode so far in head-to-head where our decks actually have a shot of hitting not only our test boxes, but maybe even actual decks that we build.
100%, yes.
I mean, we might actually both have a shot at building this deck and actually playing with it in our play group. So if that doesn't excite you about what potentially this deck could be, I don't know what else will, to be honest.
I will preface this now, and then probably even say this again next week. We are gonna, use tribes, or 2 tribes that were both in Crimson Vow and Midnight Hunt, and we're gonna be using 2 different commanders from those 2 different tribes. That just shows you the level of complexity that has been released, but also the level of just oomph. And what I mean by oomph is there's a lot of options. We're gonna have, oh man, do I tease?
What I love, I'll do this to slightly
just,
help.
Come on, I'm getting excited.
What I love about the next 2 episodes, guys and gals, and whoever else is listening, dogs, fish, whatever it may be.
Fish.
The next 2 episodes, I love that when we talked about these episodes, we didn't fight over either side of these 2 episodes. We were both like, I want this side. We were just like, this is going to be good. The next episode has I would probably guess the most common creature type in Magic the Gathering.
Dude, I would.
And I haven't done the Scryfall search to confirm that, but I'm going to guess it might be.
But maybe the one after that might have.
I don't think it would be close. I think it's up there, though.
I think
these are definitely two of the most popular tribes in Magic.
Now I really want to know.
These are definitely going to be tribes that I think episode 4 is not going to be the tribe. Oh, let's okay. So next episode we're doing a tribe that is very popular. A pre-con was released for it. I'm gonna try to go a little bit without giving it away, and includes a color that both of us like to play.
Agreed.
So that's episode 3. Episode 4 is a tribe that is very popular and is the lion's share of a creature type in one of these sets. May or may not have a pre-con released for it. And probably won't be the 2 most popular commanders that people build for that tribe in this set. I think I might have given it away from these 2 sets. I might have given it away a little more there, but
definitely not.
I'm very intrigued about these next 2. I think they're going to be a ton of fun.
Oh yeah, for sure. We're excited.
Now, if you want to be involved in deck building from head to head in the future, or maybe even helping us decide who these commanders are going to be, jump into the Discord. You will see that there are channels not only for head to head itself, but there's going to be some future fun channels in our Discord. I would love for y'all to help us with card recommendations, to help us talk about these commanders. I would love to have Saturday be our day where the head-to-head chat blows up, because we all talk about the episode and talk about what we like about these decks. But of course, our biggest hope with this head-to-head series is that you would want to take one of our decks, play with it, and then beat us with it. No, and then
Oh, I'm perfectly fine with being beat by it.
And then really enjoying these decks and making it your own. And I would love to see my list. If you take my list, and I'm sure Mikey feels the same way, if you took our list and made it better and love it, I want to see your list. Yes. I want to see what you did with it. I want to see how 2 different people can brew something differently. But Mikey, that's all I have for this episode. Do you have anything else for our listeners for this episode?
Hey, check back with us next week on Saturday morning, bright and early. Grab your coffee. Grab that sunrise, and just like Runo, singing to Crothus, open up your window, sing to the birds of the beautiful commander talk that you will hear in your ear holes next week. We'll see you later, guys.